Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled that my friend Nicole has joined me here today. So, if you're not aware of my friend, Miss Nicole Toudoze, Nicole is a top notch marketing strategist. She's renowned for scaling dental practices with bespoke, data driven marketing plans, which I love that it's data driven. You all know me, I am a metrics driven man, right? With a robust advertising background, she honed her skills with major brands like Bank of America, 7-Eleven, before she pivoted into dentistry. That's our lane as marketing director for DFW Family Dentistry. So after that, after those 7 locations, she spearheaded breakaway marketing, boosting over 300 dental practices nationwide. And then later, she said, you know what? I'm going to do some marketing consulting. And in 2021, established Transcendental LLC, setting a new benchmark in dental marketing and partnership for practice growth. Please help me welcome to the show my friend Nicole. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that introduction.
Yeah, for sure. I am just so excited, and I have to share with the listening audience. So you and I we spoke for the first time many months ago, and then we were like two ships passing in the night, and then we were at the American Academy of Dental Group Practices just a very short time ago. And sure enough, we struck up a conversation. I thought I had the aha moment. I had a client that had a need, and I'm a big fit person, like not just even for what I do, I customize everything I do for my clients instead of just here's a script. It's really formulas that work. Yeah, and so we started our conversation that way. So talk to my listening audience a little bit about our first engagement and the first time that we met at that particular meeting in Las Vegas, none other places.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you on fit. And, even from our first encounter virtually, I felt like you guys, your clients, and you were a great fit for Transcendental just because of that data-driven approach and being invested in client success and helping the clients to, solve problems such as case acceptance, reaching their target audience, driving in production, things of that nature. So yeah, I was thrilled to meet you in person, and obviously we just hit it off, and had so many alignments in terms of methodology, strategy, and how we think we can really impact these practices. So yeah, this was a natural course of events here.
Yeah, it's interesting, in full arch, which is my lane, but in marketing for dentistry in general, it's all about trying to figure out. Everybody wants the quick fix, right? Especially in full arch, it's like how many leads can you bring in? What's the number? And they tend to be quick to jump ship. But what I love about the conversation we've had and we are having continually is you're really strong on brand identity. And for me, and what I teach, coach, train, not only that, but what I speak on, because I do that often now too, is that branding doesn't stop at the digital imprint. Branding also has to do with everything that happens in clinic and over the phone, from the initial patient inquiry all the way through that first physical engagement to the patient concierge, the dental assistant, right? That comes and gets the patient for the records, to the doctor, to the treatment coordinator, to the financial coordinator, everybody using the same language, right? From, whether you call it a CT scan or a CAT scan or a CBCT, doesn't matter, but is everybody calling it the same thing? So there's consistency in that branding. So talk to me a little bit about branding and your approach to branding for any of your clients, which I know there's many that you've been working with over the years, and what approach you take to branding.
Absolutely, and you're totally right. I mean, it has to be cohesive from first touch attribution all the way through scheduling the appointment, and even case presentation or treatment presentation. That tone and voice and that identity, your team has to live and breathe it. So a lot of people, when they think about a brand, the first thing they think of is a logo, but the logo is just one small facet of what makes up the brand identity. And so having a seamless end-to-end experience for your patient, both external and internal, is really what is going to drive acquisition, because you've got this predictable, reliable, brand identity that you can deliver to your target audience. And our approach, especially with groups, we talk a lot about how hard it is to scale brands for groups. It's a challenge we face daily. And, it's so important to look at the location level, look at each practice at the location level and truly understand what does the market look like demographically, psychographically, behaviorally? Who are these people that are coming into the practice, or who are the people we're trying to bring into the practice? And then making sure that the brand image aligns with the market that you're trying to serve, right? So if you are in a very affluent area, you need a very specific type of brand that's going to feel richer, right? That's going to deliver more value. And then you may have, if you're in a low socioeconomic area and you're, looking for more of a volume approach, your brand might be more about convenience and accessibility, right? So yeah, we really take a step back at the location level, look at the market we're trying to serve. We look at the team, what they bring to the table, how they're different maybe across locations, service offering as well, and ultimately just what is the mission of that location and that practice, and how do we bring that to life, not only through marketing but through any brand impression, whether that be scripting on the phones, or how treatment is presented, or down to the coffee flavors in the office, right? Like just making sure that all of that is just seamless and thought through and cohesive, and supports the brand that you're trying to portray.
Well, I can so appreciate that because you're talking about making sure that it matches, right? That the message matches the audience. Because when you walk in, into the practice like you're talking about, I call them clinics, right? You walk into the clinic, right? If you have a Starbucks audience, you want to make sure you have a Starbucks offering. If you have a Dunkin' Donuts audience, you have a Dunkin' Donuts offering. And those of my friends know that one was for you. And those of my colleagues in the industry, because we have this debate all the time, because there are certain people who are Dunkin' Donuts fans who do not like Starbucks. And I'm a Starbucks kid, but that's, be that as it may. Hopefully that didn't just turn off 30% of my listening audience there. But it's really meeting them where they're at. And yes, it starts with the logo, absolutely. But the especially challenging what you're talking about, which is the marketing for the groups, whether they're, emerging DSO, emerging mid-sized groups or large DSOs. I'm working with a group right now, their flagship, and it was key that their flagship was solid core foundation, that they really had a good, but as they're dropping more and more what we're calling satellite locations, that not that they're better or worse, but it's not their flagship. And they're in different geographic, socioeconomic areas, and it's still servicing, that fixed full arch. It's how are you attracting, how are you branding a little differently with still maintaining, the essence and culture and the overall brand of the group. And so I love how you pointed that out. And when you were talking, I was thinking, well, yeah, are you in more of a white collar or a blue collar area? And what is the product offering and what do you lead with? It's really meeting the client where they're at. So what do you see today as some of the biggest challenges, in the changing DSO marketing space, in addition to what you've already shared?
Yeah. So one conversation that's really prevalent in this side of the industry is how you want to do your brand architecture, right? So an emerging group, even if you're starting off with just your first, second location, right? Your first satellite office, you have to really assess and make the decision in terms of long-term vision of your group. Am I going to have a single brand house or multiple brand houses, right? Am I going to go monolithic with the name, or am I going to have individualized brand identities across all these locations? And I think when we there's so many pros and cons to both, this phrase is used a lot in marketing, but it just really depends, and you have to sort of assess what your goals are for the group long term. So you really have to think about, how big am I wanting to scale this? Do I want, a singular business model that's applied across multiple locations, or am I looking for more of a varied portfolio, right? And then from there deciding, okay, does it make sense? Like if I'm going to be targeting the same demographics, the same markets across any location that I launch, then, a uniform brand, a flagship brand might make sense for your group. If you know that you are looking for, just the best P&L deal, right? As you're acquiring locations, and it's not so much about the model or the vision, then you may have varying demographics, you may have varying markets, varying service offerings, right? Like you may have an all-on-4 practice and then an emergency clinic, right? If your group is comprised of more dynamic locations. And if that's the case, then that's not a singular brand model, right? It's really important to understand how similar or different are these locations going to be across your portfolio? How similar or different are the markets going to be across your portfolio? As well as, considering economies of scale. So obviously with one brand, there are, cost efficiencies to be realized, right? As you're scaling a group and adding locations, from a marketing standpoint specifically, you're really able to control costs a lot better than if you're rebuilding the marketing program and the online presence and all of that each time you launch a location, right? So those are the considerations and some, the things we talk through when we talk about launching brands for emerging groups or DSOs. And then outside of that, staffing is obviously an issue across all DSOs as well as private practices. It's just an industry-wide issue, right? So, when we talk about branding is also very important for groups in that aspect, being able to recruit talent and compete with other private practices or DSOs in the area to be able to staff up, which is a primary challenge that most practices are facing right now. So having an established brand, a clear vision on culture, internal brand, and being able to communicate that across your social media platforms, your LinkedIn, wherever you're trying to recruit people, it's important to consider that as well. But outside of that, I would say the biggest issues I see facing DSOs in terms of marketing right now is definitely the missed call rate and conversion rate, which I think that's a pretty consistent challenge that practices have faced. I've been in the industry for the last 15 years, and that's just a prevalent issue, right? So a lot of these DSOs or groups will want to dump marketing dollars into a program, but they don't take the time to really audit and assess what their internal systems look like, right? And so we'll launch a campaign and all of a sudden we're tracking things and there's this 60% missed call rate, and you've got, Susan on the phone telling them to go down the street to a different practice. And we're hearing these things. And like our data shows right now with DSOs, the average missed call rate is about 60%. So it's a majority of calls coming through, as well as conversion rate being what should be 80%. We should be converting at least 80% of our calls. We're seeing that closer to 40 to 50%. So, we're really not optimizing these marketing dollars because the internal systems are broken. So making sure that that is in alignment prior to, any big marketing spend is crucial for ROI.
Well, and what I'm hearing you say throughout all of that is that having tech stack, having the right tools in place for the data-driven metrics is critically important. But ultimately, it comes down to people. And you started off because the people side of it is founders, owners, visionaries wanting to go from 1 to 2 to many locations, helping them to understand, which is my lane, and those that I bring in from my team is to understand, well, what is that vision? How does that outlook manifest? And one of the reasons why we have to help them with that, not because they can't do it, because they don't know the process to do it, because we've done that many times before. That's the first thing I heard. And then the second thing, you were talking about this, and it's really understanding, right, that opportunity. If you do have a single branded group, it's selling that opportunity for growth for the individual, because you're not having to explain that, well, no, we have 33 locations, even though they're all named something different. There is opportunity for you to come join our family of practices. But if it's all under one roof and it's all the same name, then they know, because they can just Google search it and it pops up with 17 different job opportunities under that same brand, that same name, if you will. And that really creates a different vibe for somebody who is an up and comer, a potential superstar, or a current superstar in their role that's looking to build and grow, maybe as an office manager that wants to be an ops manager or a regional manager, or, I could just go up the chain. And that's an opportunity as well, especially in a market where you want to retain really good talent or attract better talent. I think that's critically important. And then the third piece, which is you're talking about it as well, that we can measure these calls, the missed calls, the conversion rate. It's a big piece of, what I call that patient journey, that initial inquiry on the lead calls that I teach, coach, and train. But it's also about that human interaction piece, which is, do you make an emotional connection, especially on the big case side, when they're doing direct to consumer marketing and it's not in the referral network and it's a different type and style of call? And do you spend the time and understand what it takes to be able to set those people up for success, having those interactions with the patients to convert the lead calls into consults and then get the no-show rate down so that they do actually come into. So it's all people centered and people centric. And I think that one of the pieces that sometimes gets overlooked, missed, or just isn't understood initially when PE groups come in, and that is they miss that people-centric side, and it gets too much into the P&L statement side and the EBITDA, into the cost analysis side, and the people side is overlooked somewhat. Have you
I would agree
seen
with
that?
that. Oh yeah.
Do you get that? Yeah,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that and
Yeah,
your reflections
absolutely.
from a marketing company standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think, and it's not just with the people component, even on the marketing side, when these locations are acquired, there's not much strategy going into how to onboard them, right? And so, yeah, I feel like the owners get focused on the P&L, through this very narrow lens, and sort of omit some of the other really important variables they need to have their hands around when they're onboarding these locations, including the people, the staff, what kind of coaching, training, maybe where the gaps are, right, on the team. And then also from a marketing standpoint, they're not auditing the marketing. They're not making sure all the assets are organized, in terms of Google Business Profile ownership, social media pages, things like that. So we do a lot of that cleanup too. So just overall, I think, when DSOs and groups are acquiring more locations, assessing on a wider, broader scale, right, where each location is at. And I loved our conversation at the conference about the empathy part of what we do, right? And, you brought up if somebody's trying to, convert an all-on-4 case, you have to understand the journey these people are on. I interview them personally, these patients, and hear their stories about how they can't take their kids to the movie because they're so insecure, or they don't celebrate their birthday, or whatever it is. I mean, it severely impacts their life. And so if you don't have a team who can resonate with that, or just at least hold space for that, the likelihood of converting these larger cases that are so emotionally driven is very low. And I even hear it on emergency calls, right? Somebody calls in pain, and they say, man, I got to get in, my tooth hurts so bad, I've been in pain for a week. Some of them are crying, and you may just have this person that's just stone cold, right? Like, okay, well, yeah, we're closed today, sorry about you. Like, when really they should be, I'm so sorry to hear that, right? Like, I would love to help you get out of pain as quickly as possible. Let's see the soonest available appointment I have, right? And so just having the same script and conversations, but, applying that empathy filter on it, can really be the difference in that conversion rate for sure.
Yeah, it's that first response piece, right? I'll share with you, and you just reminded me of this opportunity when I listen to a lot of phone calls. It's a big part of what we do at G&A Consult, and what you had shared right there reminded me of a lead call that I was listening to that I happened upon. It wasn't one that somebody had sent to me, but I stumble upon calls. I listen to a lot of them, and it was a patient calling in and shared that a relative of theirs had died, and they needed to reschedule that's what they were sharing, and said, I have an appointment tomorrow. A relative of mine had died. I'm not going to be able to make my appointment. The next thing out of the employee's mouth at the dental location was, so you'd like to rebook your appointment? I literally almost dropped both earbuds out of my ear, thinking, I mean, just a small little wedge of empathy there. I mean, like, how do you not say something like, that must be very challenging for you. Let me help you with next steps. Is there anything that you need? Like, don't worry about your appointment. You have other, I mean, anything at that point, right? Even the generic, which makes me cringe that I'm even going to say this, Nicole, but I will. I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, the I'm so sorry, like, is so overused, but at least go there. At least give me like the little inch of the I'm so sorry, right? Something.
Yeah.
But it was,
Well,
oh, did you want me to get that
acknowledge what they
rescheduled for
said.
you?
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Mm-hmm. Well,
such a
and
big
when you
mess.
think about like how we measure team members, EQ really should be part of that, right? Like emotional intelligence really should be part of any front lines team training, or auditing. I think we talked about the people on the phones are the face of your brand, and if your brand, is supporting the oral health and wellness of the market, then that should be conveyed through emotional support and empathy. Absolutely.
And that, I mean, that's all, that all leads to the image and branding, right? You have the image and branding on website or landing pages or whatever, right? Your brand out there is of compassion and caring, and we're very kind. And then you call up and say, I can't make my appointment tomorrow because I had a family member that died. So did you want to reschedule?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a disconnect.
My daughter would say that's cringy.
It's cringy.
Yeah, it's cringy.
I love that. I love your daughter. I love your daughter.
She's
all right.
fabulous.
Well, Nicole, this is the part of the program.
Okay.
All of my guests play a little something called "What the Sleuth is Going On?" 3 rapid fire questions.
I'm ready.
First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
Oh. What the sleuth is going on with this question? Let's see. I can't think of a time in which I noticed someone's breath to that extent that I locked away a memory of it. Do you know an answer to that question? Have you?
Come on now. Your hubby's not in the room.
It's not him. Great, right? Oh my gosh,
See, this is what happens when you're too nice. When you're too nice, you're like, I don't even remember.
I know. I feel like I don't lock it away. I mean, on an airplane, there's always all kinds of smells.
True.
I'm not sure it's breath. I think maybe it's not. But that's typically a triggering experience for me.
Fair enough.
Strangers with varying odors, you're just like.
Fair enough. On a plane, and I'm not sure it's breath. That's a. I'll take that answer. And we'll run with it. All right, I'll take it. That's good. Question number 2: if you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
I'm actually working on mine right now. I don't have my trays in Don't Tell My Dentist, who's also my client and friend. He'd be so upset. But yeah, I'm working through Invisalign right now, and then I'm going to do some whitening. So yeah, fun fact, I refused to get braces as a child. Like, I was so insecure and worried about my own confidence that my mom tried to get me to do braces. I wouldn't do it. It was like the worst mistake I ever made. I wish I could go back and, knock some sense into my 6th grade self and say, get the braces. You don't have to be doing Invisalign when you're almost 40 years old.
The defiant one. Or you could have gotten braces when you were younger and then ended up not wearing the retainer when you got older, and you do some refinements in the clear aligners later in life. So, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Okay, fair enough. Okay, question number 3. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that is a good question. Inventor of any dental product, what would you choose and why? I mean, I think the way we are implementing AI into dentistry is so cool. We have a few robotics practices with the Lumi and, different implant guided surgeries and things like that. So I would say definitely something on the tech side, either AI, but I am, working so hard on my analytics platform, and it doesn't really exist yet. So I'm excited to be the inventor of that.
There's so much cool stuff coming out in dentistry, and it's growing exponentially. I remember when in-office milling was a big thing, and then in-office printing became the new thing, and now there's 30 brands on the market. I mean, I just can't wait to see what's around the corner. AI integration, both on the planning side, on detecting caries, on the, how they're able to help read radiology. I mean, there's so much good stuff going on with AI. It's very exciting. I was just at the Chicago Midwinter meeting recently, and I was meeting with founders and people who have great things going on. Amresh is somebody who has some great things going on. Ophir, I mean, there's just so many really smart
really
people, smarter than me, who are sharing just their skill and their knowledge and applying it to dentistry that I find it fascinating. So
it really
I agree.
Is fascinating. There's so many cool products out there right now. Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
And historically, I would say dentistry has always been behind the curve, both with data, streamlining, obviously softwares, platforms, any level of technology. And so, I feel like we're making some traction. Like I feel like the momentum just the last 2, 3 years is crazy in terms of the strides we're making. So it's been exciting to see, especially being in the field for so long and always feeling like we can do this. Come on, guys. And seeing more people just try to be trendsetters and, really spearhead and pioneer next generation solutions. It's been so cool to see and to meet those people, the brains behind the operation is really cool and inspiring for me.
Yeah, agreed. I've been in the industry almost 18 years now, and same, like to see it really accelerate now with the learnings and the technology is fantastic for sure. Well, Nicole, I want to respect your time, my listening audience, because a lot of them are on treadmills or hopefully not scuba diving, because I don't know how they'd listen doing that, but a lot of them do listen in limited amounts of time. So is there anything I haven't covered or asked you in the last few minutes that you want to share with my listening audience today?
Hmm. No, I'd say if you don't know your missed call rate and your conversion rate, please look into that today.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. Like, oh my gosh, those metric numbers are like foundational for any client I start work with. I'm like, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't track, you can't attack. That's what I say all the time. So it's so true. You got to know those. So thank you for uplifting that last little bit of information. Nicole Toudoze, Transcendental Marketing. Love you. Great conversation. Thanks so much for coming on the Two
Love
Sleuth
you,
podcast.
Greg.
Have a
So
great
much
day.
fun. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.